The morning sun hasn't crested the hill yet as a Cherokee woman sets out from her village in search of materials, and the dew is just about cold enough to make a frost. The year is turning from summer to autumn, and she follows a path her ancestors have known for thousands of years. It will be another generation yet before the Cherokee encounter Europeans, and her community needs to stock up on hunting supplies. While they have plenty of arrowheads at their disposal, thanks to their skilled craftspeople, arrow shafts are running low. The days are growing shorter, and the leaves are falling from the trees. She follows the bank of the river until it enters woodland. A little later, the dappled light of the forest canopy gives way to a small clearing, where she finds what she seeks: a largish shrub, straight stems decked with purple-red leaves and clusters of dark berries. Arrowwood, Viburnum dentatum. You're listening to Plant Connection. Life today can feel overwhelming, like we've drifted away from its natural rhythm. This podcast is your space to slow down, breathe, and rediscover the peace and clarity that come from reconnecting with the natural world. I'm your host, Lisa Cutshaw. Let's reconnect, one plant at a time. Where the tall stems meet the soil are other shorter growths emerging from the rootstock underground. These basal shoots are straight and true, flexible yet tough, and are what the woman seeks. They will be perfect for arrow shafts. She cuts plenty of these shoots, but leaves many intact too, to guarantee future harvests. Once she has a full bag, she rises and pauses. She remembers that one of her cousins is sick back at the village, and another community member is due to give birth any day now. She cuts several of the arrowwood stems and adds them to her bag. When boiled, the bark will make an effective tea to relieve fevers and postpartum pains. With her harvest complete, she follows the river back towards her village. While our introductory story is a little speculative, it's known that arrowwood was used and valued by many eastern woodland tribes, including the Lenape, Cherokee, and Potawatomi. The properties of their basal shoots make them excellent arrow shafts, tough, flexible, and not prone to splintering, reducing risk for the archer. As well as for arrow shafts, the stems were also used for fishing spears and tool handles. It's likely that fall was considered the best time to gather stems, given the lack of leaves in this season makes the best stems easier to locate, and will also require less drying time. Once cut and the bark peeled away, the stems are tied together in a bundle to stay straight as they dry. Heating and bending the stems over a fire could help accelerate this process and get exactly the shapes required. Arrowwood and its relatives have medicinal functions too. Teas brewed from viburnum bark relieved fevers and infections, brought down swellings, and could provide postpartum relief. Iroquois women have even reportedly used arrowwood essence as a contraception. And these properties are far from placebos. Arrowwood is full of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds, and neuroactive molecules, so it's no surprise that some herbalists continue to harvest the plant today. Arrowwood was also used by Algonquin peoples as an ingredient in kinnikinnick, a mixture of dried and rolled substances that are smoked within a ceremonial pipe, which produces, in the words of a New York Times article from 1944, a beautiful hazy blue smoke with an aroma to remember. And other arrowwood species were used similarly by other indigenous people across the northern hemisphere. Otzi the Iceman, I hope I'm saying that correctly, found perfectly mummified in the Alps over 5,000 years after his death, is a prime example. His story is a mysterious one, and the jury is still out over whether he was murdered and left where he fell, or whether he was formally buried by his community. Either way, he had plenty of possessions with him, though whether they were intended to aid him in this life or the next remains unknown. Among his belongings were a copper-bladed axe, a flint dagger, 2 vessels made of birch wood, and a bow and quiver, within which were 14 arrows with arrowwood shafts. Given how arrowwood is ideally suited for this purpose, it's perhaps no surprise that different cultures converged in its utility. When settlers arrived in America, they quickly incorporated arrowwood into their own practices, including using arrowwood berries to make ink or dye fabric. And over in Missouri, there's even a town called Viburnum. The story goes that around the late 1800s, a certain Dr. Mincher was expanding his enterprises. As well as a medical doctor, he was also a farmer and owner of the general store. He applied to the federal government to include a post office within his store, and when they asked him to choose a name, he turned to the ingredients used to stock his medicine cabinet. Chief among them were viburnum berries. Several members of the viburnum genus might bear the name arrowwood, depending on who you talk to. There are around 135 viburnum species in total, of which a dozen are found in North America. Some species produce edible fruits, including hobblebush, nannyberry, black haw, and European cranberry bush. But here I'm mainly talking about southern arrowwood, Viburnum dentatum, which is found in the eastern and central United States. If you're not familiar with it, it's a highly adaptable plant that is equally at home in parking lots and landscape gardens. If you're out and about, you're likely to encounter it on the edges of woodlands, in hedgerows, and along roadsides, especially where the soil tends to be a little damper. You can recognize it as a dome-shaped shrub made up of strong, straight stems, decked with flowers, berries, or beautiful autumnal colors, depending on what time of year you're in. Arrowwood's verdant green leaves first appear in spring, followed by spherical buds that have the appearance of green berries. These open into clusters of tiny white flowers from May to July, delicate yellow stamens protruding from within. The flowers don't smell very strong. In fact, some people find the smell a little unpleasant. But our perception is, of course, very different to insect pollinators, such as mason bees, bumblebees, and butterflies, which go wild for these flowers. In the late summer, arrowwood's pollinated flowers are succeeded by little blue-black berries. While not considered edible for humans, they are enjoyed by a wide range of wildlife through fall and winter, including bluebirds, flickers, catbirds, cardinals, robins, and a multitude of small mammals, such as chipmunks and squirrels. These berries persist into the winter months, making them a valuable food source for these animals when other sustenance is scarce. The tightly packed stems of arrowwood also provide excellent safe spaces for nest building. When fall comes around, the arrowwood's serrated leaves develop a wonderful palette of yellow, red, and magenta. The plant is deciduous, so will lose its leaves, but the elegant stems, and any berries that haven't yet been eaten, remain throughout the colder months. One species of butterfly has an especially close connection to arrowwood, making a beeline to the plant even before the flowers have opened. The spring azure, often the first butterfly to emerge in springtime, lays its eggs on arrowwood's flower buds. When the eggs hatch, the caterpillars munch on the flowers, often guarded by ants, who defend against insect predators in exchange for a sugary solution excreted by the caterpillars. Once large enough, the caterpillars form chrysalises, where they will remain over winter. When spring begins, they emerge as beautiful blue butterflies, which live for just a few days, just enough time to mate, lay eggs, and begin the cycle anew. While the origins of arrowwood's common name are easy to decipher, the etymological roots of the word viburnum are a little hazy. The genus was first named and described in Europe, given arrowwood's close relatives over there. Some suggest it derives from the Latin word viere, meaning to weave together, given that many species of viburnum have pliable twigs that may have been used to weave baskets. Dentatum is easier to pin down. It means toothed, given the serrated edges of the leaves. Arrowwood has spiritual significance too. The plant is a symbol of renewal and resilience, as it returns to flower and fruit year after year, leading some folk herbalists to associate it with Mars, which is bestowed with many similar qualities. Artworks use arrowwood's white flower clusters to symbolize purity and serenity. And in parts of Appalachia, arrowwood was believed to provide protection when planted near a home, or help sharpen decision-making when carried with you. Perhaps this promise of protection and wisdom is the final incentive you need to get some arrowwood into your own garden. Arrowwoods are both tough and beautiful, making them a favorite of both amateur and professional gardeners. While they will grow in a wide range of conditions, they ideally like a temperate climate, full or partial sunlight, and moist but well-draining soil. But if your garden doesn't fulfill all of these requirements, chances are the plant may still do just fine. Arrowwoods typically don't suffer from many pests or diseases, though one beetle, invasive to the U.S., is causing issues. The Viburnum leaf beetle, native to Europe, made its first appearance in Canada in 1947 and has since spread across northern North America. The beetles and their larvae can even skeletonize a plant, consuming virtually all of its leaves. Wild viburnums typically have more resistance to this pest than ornamental cultivars, but if the beetle does reach your garden, it's best controlled through pruning and destroying any twigs with eggs between October and April, when the adult beetles are inactive. So, how to get started? Growing from seed can be tricky and time-consuming, so it's recommended to use cuttings or suckers to get a full plant more rapidly. They can get large, up to 10 feet tall and 15 feet wide in an open space with ideal conditions, which makes them an excellent addition or starting point for shrub borders, providing a dense and beautiful plant that supports a whole host of wildlife. And this plant is not only an exemplar of hardiness, but also longevity. Some viburnum species live up to 150 years, though 50 years is more likely for most. Still, 5 decades is not bad at all. And while there are several ornamental cultivars available, I'd recommend seeking wild varieties to maximize benefits for wildlife and conservation. But if you do need a more compact plant for your yard, Viburnum dentatum selections are available from nurseries, with Blue Muffin being the one I've most often used in designs. The blueberries and red to purple fall color make it a native shrub to consider planting. There's plenty we can learn from the versatile and durable Arrowwood. It has provided vital materials for indigenous people for millennia, and while many of the details of these people's relationships with this plant may be lost to the sands of time, we can continue to value and honor Arrowwood to this day. For me, seeing a healthy Arrowwood shrub, be it at a highway rest stop, a forest glade, or a conservation-minded garden, always grants me a pause in the rhythm of the day. If it's springtime, the flowers may be buzzing with bees and butterflies. If it's fall, birds may be flocking to its berries. And if it's winter, the basil shoots revealed between the bare stems remind me of this shrub's deep cultural legacy. At any time of year, it's a delight to stop and witness this beautiful plant. Thank you for joining me on this journey back to nature with Plant Connection. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to tap subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss the next episode. See you next time.